than different industry-focused communities ranging from higher accounting to work in sports. And we really focus deeply on the industry-focused communities so that we can provide our employers with qualified talent faster and give job seekers more meaningful work, access to meaningful work. I'm also the host of our Work in Sports podcast, which explains the extremely large microphone. So just have to get that out of the way before everybody wonders what this thing is.
Well, you've got the perfect voice for a podcast on sports.
Thank you, Peter.
We're glad to have you here, Brian.
It's the microphone. I'm faking it.
JT.
Hi, everyone. I'm the CEO of Work It Daily. We are one of the largest career advice and job search sites on the internet. We have over 3 million social media followers and over 1.5 million visitors to the site per month. So we specialize in really helping people find their career identity and their purpose. But at the same time, we then work with employers sharing their stories directly to these individuals. Because as we're going to talk about today, I don't think there are job seekers anymore. I think everyone's become a job shopper. And it's really important that they discover their next employer. And so we love helping companies do that.
So what's behind the name of your company? What are you telling people when you say Work It Daily?
Great question. So I left corporate America and the staffing recruiting industry 20 years ago to become a career coach. And when I did, I built a 4-step methodology called the GLOW method, which stands for gain perspective, illuminate the goal, own your actions, work it daily. And the most important step is the fourth part, because if you're going to own your career and really, have the right opportunities for yourself, you do have to put a little time and energy in every day. And so that's what we teach there.
Right. Okay. And Brandon, I know you're just back from a transatlantic journey, but you're still awake and not apparently suffering from jet lag. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. And I'm definitely back in action. I do miss Germany though. So yeah, my name is Brandon Mitchell, founder and CEO of RightSee.com. We are a platform that helps on recruitment marketplaces, talent communities, and job boards really unlock differentiated revenue by spinning up their own career services arms to be able to help the massive amounts of job seekers that they're working with. Traditionally speaking, job boards kind of turn a little bit of a blind eye towards the candidates and don't provide some of the services that help them really grow their career and expand their reach and get to their next career opportunities a little bit faster. So we come in, we integrate, and we help connect their job seekers with career coaches, resume writers, interview coaches to be able to help them scale and kind of get into their next career path as soon as possible.
Great. Okay. So, and Stephen, who should be known to everybody here, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you to introduce yourself, Stephen, coming all the way from Glasgow, my good friend, Stephen O'Donnell.
Yeah, I'm representing Europe on this call. I'm the Chief Growth Officer with TAtech, and everyone should know TAtech, but I've been in recruitment for 36 years, half of that time in technology, and half on the recruitment agency side of things. And one of my other hats is I run an online recruitment awards where we get a lot of feedback from candidates on what they want, what they don't want, what they like, and what they resist. So I'm particularly interested in this topic.
Great. Okay, so let's begin at the 50,000 foot level. We've always understood that there were generational differences in the way people go to market for jobs. Big differences, particularly between old boomers like myself and Gen Z people coming into the job market for the first time. But if you read all of the commentary on the web, the blog posts, the podcasts, and so forth, people seem to be suggesting that there's something more fundamental, more profound going on, that we're seeing something that's more significant, is job seekers' expectations, their behaviors, their goals in their work lives. So what do you think? Do you folks agree with that view that we're seeing a fundamental shift in today's job seeker? They are fundamentally different from those of before? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I mean,
Hell yeah.
Right now, GT kind of alluded to this. Job seekers are looking for a position that really aligns more with like personal beliefs almost. It used to be, I'm just trying to find a job. I don't think people really got in the weeds on who that company was. What did they mean? What was their mission? What were their values? They really are looking for that to align to their personal beliefs now. And it's so imperative to tell that employer branding story through every touch point, and at a speed that is going to convert candidates.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I'm sorry, JT, go ahead.
No, you dive in. I'm sure we're going to say the same thing.
Well, I mean, there's going to be some overlap here because I think we see a lot of the same patterns. I think the access to information is beyond where we could ever believe. I think young people have access to more tools and technology and streamlined processes. I mean, we're running a report right now that will come out in early May that deals exactly what Stephen was just talking about, what job seekers want, what job seekers expect. And we've been running it for years so we can see some of these patterns. And the data changes that you see on simple technology things like, what's your preferred method of communication? It used to be like 92% email. Now it's 49% text. You know, it's like those numbers are coming down and you're seeing different changes. We're in a fast-paced world. Information is everywhere. We're seeing people using AI in more operative ways. It's all changing quickly, and it's on all of us to stay on board with it.
And I'm going to
There
add
was a
on to
time-
that. The tech piece
Sorry,
is
carry on.
huge. The need to this sense of identity piece is huge. But I think we can underestimate the fact that when you take technology that is all about defining yourself, social media technology, every technology is video based now. Everything we do, we are being constantly scrutinized based on our choices and who we are as an individual. Never before have we lived in a time where you basically needed to, share your identity in everything, work, life, all the different aspects. So making a decision to go to work for a company, you really have to feel comfortable that that's going to be a place that you can defend. And that didn't happen in the past. And that's changing how people look at these companies, and they spend so much time researching them in order to make sure this is a place that, obviously is going to treat me well and I'm going to do well there. But also I'm going to be able to say I'm proud I work there because people are going to find it out. So for the younger generations, that's become, just an imperative and non-negotiable. Will that change over time as they age? I think it'll be interesting to see, but we can't ignore it.
You really hit on something there, JT, that there was a time when people's identity was tied in absolutely with what they did for a living. It was almost assigned to if you were an accountant or an architect or worked in a factory. Now their sense of identity is more tied into not the line of work that they're in, but the employer that they have, and the employer brand ties in with their personality. So they're more fussy, they're more picky about the company they'll go and work for, because to an extent it does say something about them as people.
Yeah, I would definitely piggyback, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I definitely agree. And I also look at the perspective that we also just come from the pandemic. And so you have a generation scarred in terms of looking at just massive amounts of companies doing layoffs across all sectors, all industries, all shapes, and seeing, your parents and your grandparents and people coming out of school not being able to kind of find the right employment opportunities that they're looking for. I think that now more than ever, job seekers are really, really, really looking into what connects directly to them, and like, how does the company serve them versus them serving the company. I feel like we're in a fundamental shift of the power dynamic. And I think that the labor shortage isn't really helping. And so right now it's like, if you're not speaking directly to the job seekers, telling them what they want to hear, like, they will just hop off or they'll just pass up the opportunity. And I think salary is becoming less and less and less of a factor in really wooing, job seekers to kind of work for you.
I've been really surprised. I speak in a lot of different college campuses. I probably speak in 40 per semester. And one of the things that continues to impress and surprise me in a positive way is how purpose-driven everybody's becoming. They're much more driven by, what does this mean on a grander scale, rather than just, do I have, exactly these benchmarks that I want to hit at these certain parts of my life. It's more, what does this mean for my bigger picture, and does it align with my values too, which I think is encouraging in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And one thing we're continuously driving for too is, getting those stories, getting employee stories out there. Candidates want to hear from people who are in those positions, who have grown up with the company, who have seen their career progress. And so how are we getting employee stories as part of the candidate experience and kind of infiltrating that, especially through kind of the tech work stack, if we're sharing it within employer profiles, but also how are we showing it as part of the interview process, the onboarding process, and really kind of that end-to-end touch point versus just showing them content up front of like getting them to apply, but taking it a step beyond that.
I love that you're talking about that, because So first of all, it's good to see companies finally putting content out there. I think unfortunately, a lot of companies are really far behind in that process. We've now moved all the way towards, it's not what you do for work, but why you do it. So I love that everybody's become purpose driven. What concerns me about that is that people tend to want to hold out. They're feeling such pressure to be aligned with a company that, is in sync with every aspect of who they are. And so one of the things we're really trying to do is move the conversation away from, is your company amazingly purpose driven and has all this great stuff, to why do people work at your company? How is this working here serving them? And a quick example, a client of ours, Avis, we just dropped a TikTok campaign for them last week. And it's just a story of Joe. And Joe had a life-threatening condition. And Avis was the one that said, hey, go take the time off. Your job's here when you come back. He tells that story in 60 seconds. It already has over 27,000 views. So it's those stories that I feel like employers, if they're listening to this is where you need to catch up to. You're going to have to tell that story. And then to your point, which I love, carry that story through that hiring process. Is there, because they're going to opt in and want to learn a little bit more and a little bit more. Can you customize that experience for them based on what interests them in the first place? So they can quickly come to that realization that I identify here. I could work here. I could feel my sense of purpose and my why here faster. I think the companies that do that are going to win big time in the talent race.
So I think we're all in agreement that there's something fundamental going on here. But let me just recite or paraphrase the pushback that I hear to this point of view, which is this is all fine and good because most of these people don't have mortgages, don't have kids going off to college that they have to worry about. It's very easy to be picky when you're young. And footloose and fancy free, wait till reality sets in. How do you counter that view and say, no, something really, and prove something really different is going on here? I mean, nobody's crystal balls are perfect. We don't know what it's going to be like in 15 or 20 years, but how do we know that this is really a fundamental shift that enterprises like an Avis have to really adjust to in order to survive as a business?
I'll dive in. If someone else, I'm going to. My first question to them, honestly, is tell me your alternative hiring plan. And I mean, historically, you've hired at a certain skill level, which by default often happens to be a certain age level. Okay. So you're telling me that you don't want to hire a set of skills and an experience level that you've historically built your entire hiring model around. Instead, you're going to just wait. So just walk me through how long that wait is and how financially you're going to survive that. And very quickly, nobody has any answers for me. And so, for them, they're saying, well, we just can't wait till the economy swings back and they'll all feel the tough times and they'll come running back. The last thing someone's going to do is take a job because they feel they have to and stay there long term. So, that idea, that pressure, you're creating a working environment that's setting yourself up for massive turnover. And I just don't think that's what we want. I think the better answer is let's figure out what is great about working at your company, why somebody would want to work there. Let's get those stories out there so that you can attract the right talent and the right experience level and not feel that way. But yeah, that's just me.
All right.
Well, and I would say, especially coming back, to the salary piece, or they don't have mortgages, they don't have kids, they don't really know what a commitment is yet. I really just think that's a huge shift from the pandemic. I mean, work-life balance take on a completely new meaning. You are so entwined now with your choice of a career and where you go to perform a job each day. I was reading something the other day and it was like, listen, freedom isn't salary. It isn't a committed job for 10 years. It isn't staying somewhere long-term. Freedom is now remote work, it's career development, it's progression through the industry. People's values are just shifting in a way that I don't think can be tied back to money. I mean, personally, yes, that helps, but I want to be able to spend time with my kid and my family, and I want to grow relationships with my employees. I don't want to just come in, clock out, and then leave. And so I do think it's going to start to be a shift, and maybe that'll swing back. It might be a generational thing, but I mean, we're even talking about now a workforce shortage. You have to get in front of candidates while they're young. Like, this is a completely new workforce who's coming in. That's not going to shift overnight. So this isn't a 1 to 2 year change. This is going to be, 10 plus years at this point. And so we really need to make sure that we're meeting younger candidates where they are through messaging that resonates and ultimately building that confidence in their future employer.
So a little counterpoint here, and I agree with everything that's being stated, and I think we all agree that purpose-driven and mental health and all those things are super important. But I also think fundamentally there's been a change in the way that we educate. So if you look at the high school experience now, kids are getting on engineering tracks or finance tracks or math tracks or science tracks earlier in their educational process. And then there's that's at public schools. At charter schools, then there's, schools that specialize in music or arts or entertainment. And so they're figuring out career path clarity sooner and earlier than ever before. And that's translating to their college experience and then their expectations when they hit the job market. They are thinking in a more industry focused and in a more skills-based hiring mode than ever before and understanding what demands are out there. So there's a balance going on, I believe, where there's a career clarity that's happening sooner, where it's not just, I'm going to graduate with a communication degree, get a job that I can get, and then figure things out or get my foot in the door. There's a perspective, there's a vision, there's a desire that's out there more now because we're starting earlier in funneling in students into an interest and a pathway. And I think it's an interesting change in the overall dynamic of what early employees are expecting.
That's
I've
a
always
great
been
call,
fascinated with candidates' understanding of the market and the level of confidence that if you were to be laid off, how quickly could you find another job? And the fear of losing your job now is less than it was. There might be more financial implications if you do, but people are confident. And where you see that is the length of tenure, the average length of tenure of people in jobs, especially as you go down the ages to people in their 30s and 20s, where the length of tenure has been coming down fairly rapidly over the past 10 years. It's come down a little for older people, but what that means is that as they're growing in the marketplace, people who are confident in their ability to leave one job and go to another, even without another one lined up, is rising. And with all the communication tools that we have just now, candidates are more aware of what's going on in their industry sector and adjacent industry sectors than ever before. So they'll know, or at the very least they'll feel right now, that they're in more of the driver's seat. They can assert themselves more. They can say, well, I want to work for this company, or I don't want to work in these conditions, or I need to be paid XYZ for this role. So the more they have confidence to push back, the more they will do. And that's not true in every case, but there's enough that it moves the needle.
I think that we're going to talk in just a second about what is the single most important manifestation of this shift for talent acquisition professionals and recruiters. But I think that self-awareness piece that Stephen just referred to is really important. I think that today's job seeker is much more aware that he or she is sitting in a catbird seat. They are aware of the research that says, look at the data that just came out from Manpower Group. They surveyed 39,000 employers in 41 countries, a huge population. 77% of the employers in that survey said they were having a hard time filling open positions. 77%. The talent shortages that those employers referred to were at the highest level since Manpower started doing its survey in 2006. So if I'm a job seeker, and whether I'm a boomer or Gen Z, and I know that for the first time, probably in the industrial era, there are more available jobs than there are job seekers. I have a very different playing field than has historically been available to job seekers. And that enables me to be different. That enables me to act differently, to have different goals, to have different expectations and so forth. So that changes the way they interact with recruiters. And for the recruiters who are listening to this show, what do you think is the most important manifestation that you're seeing among job seekers in regard to their interaction with employers? Is it the phenomenon of ghosting, or is it some other aspect of the way job seekers now act vis-a-vis employers?
so I can jump in, I guess. I feel like the ghosting is almost a reaction. I mean, every conversation we start with is around speed. Their recruiters have always been stuck in this like up against a time clock mentality. And so from our perspective, we really come in and consult with clients to make sure that their tech is in place to speed along the candidate experience as quickly as possible. To Brian's point, whether that's follow-up via text messages or automatic scheduling, or even just answering upfront questions, and moving them through the interview process with transparency. We are really looking at ways that kind of take some of that manual legwork off of the recruiters so that we can continue to get candidates in a timely fashion, and they're either not ghosting or they're not falling into the perpetual black hole and kind of keeping that candidate experience moving forward.
Rachel, I love what you just said. 2 supporting points for that in this survey we just did that I thought was really interesting. Over 60% of respondents said if an application process was longer than 20 minutes, I'm out. Like they want it to be a streamlined process. Additionally, one more that I thought was really interesting. It was 39% of respondents said if I'm ghosted on the flip side by an employer, I'm much less likely to use their brand in the future. So it's having a direct impact on their business. So if I have a poor experience with this company as far as their talent acquisition process, I am less likely to use their products in the future. That's pretty impactful, I would think.
It sounds like corporate's going to be giving some additional budget to TA if they really want to focus on consumer.
Yeah, exactly. It'll up your sales.
Brandon, I want to get your point of view, and then I'm going to throw in the job seeker side of it, just some added thoughts that we're seeing that might be a little different from that.
Yeah, I would say, and I heard this really interesting stat this past weekend in Germany at the Redbox conference, and I think it was a stat from Appcast, and it said that 92% of job applications are never completed, right? And I feel as if like the applicants that are submitting these applications that are really doing the time and spending the 12 to 30 minutes on average to kind of submit and say that I'd like to work here and do all the necessary hula hoops. I think that recruiters need to really look at those candidates and really follow up and make sure that if those are the candidates that are aligning with what they're looking for, to really hone in and not let the ghosting or like thinking that there's just going to be this endless supply of candidates that are going to be available, because they may not be able to fill those roles, and then they'd have to spend way more or do different things. So I think that as recruiters, and those that are in that hot seat, like not thinking that this is the same world that we lived in 10 to kind of 20 years ago, because the candidates may not be there. And so competitively and filling those positions and being able to move your company forward, I think it will be a little bit harder. And I think that on the job seeker side, like job seekers really know, like they're really aware. And they want to work with, like we said before, the companies that do align with their values. And I think that they want to love what they do. And so if you're not speaking the same language and it's not being communicated the right way, I think that they're really going to turn down a lot more offers because they have other opportunities that are kind of sitting in front of them. And so I've seen it, personally over the last kind of few months where candidates come and say, hey, I'm sitting on 5 offers. Like, what do I choose? What do I pick? And so I think that being able to look through, the different perks and the incentives and the alignments and the things that are on the table need to kind of increase as well. And I think just be more competitive as well around, putting out those offer letters and being able to kind of negotiate as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love what everyone says. And Stephen, your data, I just want to point out, I actually think we've done a huge disservice to job shoppers, job seekers, whatever you want to call them. While it's great that we started to show them you are empowered, you have choice, we want you to be purpose-driven. What's happened is they've fed into, well, there's 2 jobs for every 1 person. I should have my pick of jobs. And the truth is that's not really accurate. Yes, there are a lot of open jobs, but a lot of them don't want those jobs. So I'm dealing with job shoppers every day that are saying what I want isn't out there, or it's very competitive. And then when they get into the process and they are ghosted, or they find out there are ghost jobs, Wall Street Journal just came out with a study that shows there's an incredible number of ghost jobs on platforms that companies have put up to fake looking like they're hiring and to tell their existing staff, oh, I'm trying to hire someone, I just can't fire someone. So when all that starts to swirl around, you have job seekers who are just not inspired. And like you said, they get halfway through an application and their mindset is, oh, I'm never going to hear back, or this is a waste of my time. So we are in sort of an odd space right now. And my advice to employers is the more you can manage expectations. I mean, people on the panel today have amazing technologies available. So use the technologies, but manage the expectations, manage them in the job description, tell them how long it's going to take for somebody to get back to them, explain to them that you get thousands of applicants and you can only take, 2 people. Be really upfront through the process. That's all they're looking for, is that honesty and that management of the expectations. Otherwise, they just don't feel like they have a shot. And so they don't bother applying. And I've had so many job seekers tell me that. And I think that if we could change that and get them back to that place, we would certainly be better off.
We all say authentic communication a lot. That ends up being kind of a buzzword, but it is because it's real. It's like, that is exactly what we need more of. That is exactly what we need, that transparency. We need that conversation to be going on. I couldn't agree with you more, JT. And we see that with salary transparency too. 78.5% of respondents said they'd be more likely to apply for a job if it listed the salary range. So there's more and more states that are starting to legislate that. And that's great. So the more transparency, the more communication, the more authentic branding, I think, and storytelling, to your point earlier, I think can just go leaps and bounds for everyone.
I would suggest there's one other thing. Excuse me, Stephen, I'll be quick. One other thing that we need to think about, and that's more structural, and that is there are resume databases sitting in employers with hundreds of thousands, millions of resumes, many of which are silver medalists. They didn't get the nod for the job that they applied for, but they were number 2, and they are outstanding candidates. Yet oftentimes recruiters, because they are incented differently or because of just habit, don't even look at their internal resume database. They go outside to find somebody in the open market, where they're sitting on top of a mother lode of talent that they could potentially tap into. And by the way, if you just invest a little time and effort, this will play to what Rachel's company does in terms of nurturing a relationship with those people, recruitment marketing, then they're much more likely to be responsive down the road when you do have an opening that's appropriate for them.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I was going to say there that the perception of power for candidates, that transparency that Brian's talking about, the more you know about what's going on, the more you know about how a company works, whether it be from the likes of Glassdoor or other reviews on companies, or just the ability to contact someone who works in an organization. And the more you see, well, these are the going rates salary wise, then that transparency puts more clout in the hands of the candidates. It gives them more information upon which they can make informed decisions. It takes the guesswork out of taking a job offer and hoping that it's going to work out well. You've got much more chance of it being the actual job that you're after. But on a ghosting side, candidates, they don't fear. There used to be a black mark against you if you did that. That you would have a reputation and you'll never work in this town again, sort of thing. But candidates don't fear that anymore. They don't have a sense that it's a black mark. When I was a kid, my dad used to say to me, he said, if you get to be really good at something, then you won't have to go looking for work. Work will come looking for you. And the time that we're in just now, in terms of supply and demand, maybe only equates to going back as far as the 50s, where there was a surplus of vacancies and not enough people to do them. But I wonder, the situation that we're in just now, to what extent is that just supply and demand, or will we see a change when the balance changes and there are not enough jobs and too many candidates? And that could easily happen in the space of a year.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that that's true. I mean, last time I checked, it takes us, except in hospitality, 21 years to make a skilled person a skilled employee. And I think, the shortages that we're seeing, they're going to be they're going to last for a generation or more. I mean, I think it was Rachel who said, this kind of focusing on talent acquisition at the board level is going to be true for the rest of our work lives. I mean, these shortages are not going to go away, and the companies who are able to solve these problems and address the changing dynamics, the changing profiles of job seekers will have a huge competitive advantage in the market going forward, and the others will struggle to survive because there just is not enough talent to go around. I mean, even in China, they're running out of people. So, this is not something that historically we've been in the States, we've been able to make up the differences with immigration, but there are now huge barriers to hiring people with certain kinds of visas that would bring technical skills into the country. So, we just don't have it, which means that companies are going to struggle.
Which is why retention and internal mobility have to be, they have to belong to the TA department, because you can't be filling the bath with a plug out.
That's a great topic for our next discussion. But unfortunately, we've come to the end of this one. And I'd like to give all of our panelists a chance to say one final thought for our listeners. Rachel, let's start with you.
Ooh, hot seat. If we're really focusing on the authenticity and transparency piece, I would just urge everyone from a recruiter to a manager to a, HR director, what is the message that you are putting out to candidates and how does it truly resonate to your experience, whether that's through the interview process or once they're hired. It is easy to say a big game, but we are what we call the lived experience here at Shaker is what can they expect once they're in the door and how does that, ultimately impact your retention?
Brandon?
Yeah, I would say that I know a lot of this conversation has been focused around all the strategies and the things on the front end of getting the right job seeker in the door and spending, the amount of money and the amount of time. But I also want to say that to really focus in on the retention side of things. So I think that you want to retain the money and retain the job seekers and all that value and time and energy that you spend and really focus on that first 30, 60, 90 days that the candidate is actually in the role. And how can you make sure that you're continuously keeping up with them, making sure that it's aligning to what they want to do so that they're not, having that turnover as fast as possible and that you're actually retaining the candidates in and making sure that even in that first 6 months that candidate is still as engaged for the role as they were when they were in that interview process as well. And being able to kind of track that and make sure that there's a full feedback loop between, before you hired the candidate as well as after you had the candidate. Because I think that's where a lot of dollars go out the door on the back end because it's so concentrated on the front end.
Great. Thank you. JT?
My advice to all the recruiters, employers out there is to go to Google and go to TikTok and go to LinkedIn and simply put in working for or working at and insert your company name. And then take those results and take a really close look at them because the people you're looking for are really job shoppers and that's exactly what they're doing. And that is one of the fastest and easiest places that you could start to make an impact and a difference. Take that back to your senior team, say, these are the search results the job shoppers are getting on us. How can we change that? What do we want these search results to say? You have more control over your narrative than you think, and it's time to reclaim it because every company has an amazing story to tell. You do. They're there within your employees. You've just got to get them out there and get them in those search results.
Ryan?
I like that, JT. It's taking personal branding and turning it into organizational branding. But I'll say this, I think there needs to be a bit of a perspective shift from employers. So often we've gauged our success based on the number of incoming applicants. I posted my job and I got 300 applicants, so we win. Wouldn't you rather have 20 really good applicants rather than weeding through a bunch of people who are neither qualified or interested for your actual job? They just like the idea of maybe working at your organization. We've always played on more of a quality play, and sometimes we'll get pushback of people saying, but I want to see these big numbers. Why? Right? Do you really need a bunch of unqualified? So I'd say this is a time to really focus in on quality because that leads to Brandon's point on retention and building people from within and establishing a long-term culture. And those are the things that will continue to make your organization stronger and better.
Stephen?
One of the bravest things that any organization can do is to invest in training and coaching staff that might then go off elsewhere. But whilst you might lose some, you're building more loyal employees, you're making more of them, and they're able to grow through the organization. So if you can take that risk and use the technology that's around to not only hire people for skills and abilities and coach them to evolve and grow through the company, you'll build a much stronger organization.
Well, there you have it. It's been a fascinating conversation. I know I learned a lot, and I want to thank all of our participants in today's roundtable. Again, this is TAtech's exclusive roundtables on important topics with some of the best thought leaders in our space. Please come back for our next show. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Al.